Imagine a pope, the most powerful man in Christendom, captivated by a boy from the streets. Not a noble, not a scholar, but a homeless 15-year-old from Parma. He took him in, raised him, and elevated him to one of the highest positions in the Catholic Church, Cardinal. Europe watched in disbelief. Diplomats whispered behind closed doors. Kings scoffed at the audacity. Cardinals laughed in secret. This was not a rumor. This was the reality of Pope Julius III and his young lover, Innocenzo. By the end of this story, you will understand how the personal desire of one man reshaped the Vatican, scandalized Europe, and inspired one of the most infamous works of Renaissance literature. And if you think this is only about love, think again. It is about power, favoritism, and the consequences of a pope letting personal passion guide his hand in the most public of offices. Giovanni Ciocchi Del Monte was born in 1478 in the quiet town of Cingoli, Italy. From an early age, he showed remarkable intelligence, ambition, and a keen understanding of the intricate politics of the church. His rise was rapid. By the mid-16th century, he had become a cardinal known not just for his intellect, but for his charm and diplomacy, the kind of man who could navigate the treacherous and often deadly currents of Vatican politics with precision. Despite his brilliance, there was a private side to Giovanni, a side that would soon captivate the papacy in ways no one could have imagined. In 1548, while visiting the city of Parma, Giovanni encountered a boy living on the streets. Homeless, impoverished, and vulnerable, the boy might have been just another face in the crowd. Except that Giovanni's attention lingered. There was something about him, something that made Giovanni take an interest far beyond the ordinary. This was not a moment of casual charity. Historical accounts indicate that Giovanni was captivated by the boy, and what began as concern quickly evolved into an intense personal attachment. He did not merely help him, he orchestrated the boy's adoption by his own family, forcing Innocenzo's brother to bring him into Giovanni's household. In doing so, he elevated a street urchin to a life of privilege. Yet he also sowed the seeds of scandal that would follow him for the rest of his life. The boy's name was Innocenzo. At 15, he had survived the harsh streets of Parma by wit, luck, and resilience. He was uneducated, awkward, and ill-prepared for the sophisticated corridors of Renaissance power. Yet Giovanni took him in, and for the first time, Innocenzo had safety, shelter, and the protection of one of the most powerful men in the Catholic Church. But the adoption was not merely a matter of kindness. Sources suggest that Giovanni's interest in Innocenzo was deeply personal. Over the next 2 years, the boy's influence on Giovanni grew, even as he remained inexperienced and socially inept. Letters, poems, and chronicles from the period hint at a bond far stronger than friendship, a relationship that blurred the lines between personal affection and political favoritism. By 1550, Giovanni Ciocchi Del Monte's ascent culminated in his election as Pope Julius III. Now, his personal desires would intersect with the highest office in Christendom, and the world would watch, sometimes in horror, sometimes in disbelief, as the Pope allowed love to dictate decisions that should have been guided by prudence and tradition. The relationship between Julius and Innocenzo had been developing in secret for 2 years before Giovanni became Pope. Once he assumed the papal throne, the stakes changed entirely. Julius III was no longer merely a cardinal. He was the supreme pontiff, the spiritual leader of millions, and the earthly representative of God. His decisions mattered. Every appointment, every decree, every favor he granted would carry weight far beyond personal interest. Yet Julius was besotted. Innocenzo's presence in the papal household became central to his life and decisions. It was not enough for him to provide comfort or companionship. He needed the boy elevated, recognized, and placed in a position of status. This obsession would define the first years of Julius's papacy and make him the subject of ridicule throughout Europe. In one of his first and most audacious acts as Pope, Julius III rewarded Innocenzo with a cardinal's hat. The decision was shocking on multiple levels. Innocenzo had no formal education in theology, no experience in church administration, and little understanding of the intricate politics that governed the Vatican. By any measure, he was unqualified for such a position. Yet, to Julius, none of that mattered. His affection, or obsession, was absolute. The appointment of Innocenzo as cardinal was more than a personal indulgence. It became a European spectacle. Kings, ambassadors, and even fellow cardinals were stunned. Letters sent across courts of Europe expressed disbelief and amusement. How could the Pope elevate a man so socially awkward and untrained to one of the highest offices in Christendom? The answer was simple: personal attachment. While Vatican records insisted that Julius and Innocenzo were simply friends, multiple sources from the time contradict this. Chronicles, letters, and even some poems suggest that the Pope and the young cardinal shared an intimate relationship. Rumors circulated that they even shared a bed, a scandalous suggestion that, if true, would have been inconceivable in polite society, let alone the spiritual hierarchy of the Catholic Church. The consequences of this decision were immediate. Innocenzo was given the rank of cardinal, but was effectively relieved of all responsibilities. He had no role in important decisions, no real influence beyond what Julius granted him personally. To the outside world, the appointment symbolized nepotism, favoritism, and the dangers of allowing personal desire to override institutional integrity. The reaction across Europe was immediate and severe. Court gossip, satire, and ridicule followed Julius and Innocenzo wherever they went. Ambassadors whispered in diplomatic circles, kings joked in private correspondence, and even the clergy could not hide their laughter. The Pope, a figure meant to embody spiritual authority and moral guidance, had been reduced in the eyes of many to a man captivated by personal desire. Pamphlets circulated that mocked the Pope's decision, and caricatures spread throughout Italian cities. The story of Julius and Innocenzo became a favorite subject for poets and writers who used it to criticize favoritism, incompetence, and the human weaknesses of church leaders. For the Vatican, it was a public relations disaster. For Europe, it was a scandal too delicious to ignore. Yet, Julius III remained unfazed. The ridicule did not deter him. In his mind, Innocenzo's elevation was justified, not by competence, but by love. His attachment to the young man was total, and the Pope's indulgence would continue to make history in ways no one could have anticipated. The scandal reached its peak when it inspired a controversial work of literature, the epic poem In Praise of Sodomy and Pederasty. Published with Julius' blessing, it openly celebrated the relationship between the Pope and his young cardinal. The poem, shocking to modern and contemporary eyes alike, spread across Italy and beyond, solidifying the affair in the cultural memory of Renaissance Europe. By endorsing such a work, Julius III disregarded centuries of church decorum and public expectation. The Vatican became the center of whispered scandal, satire, and literary notoriety. The Pope's personal life was now not only a matter of gossip, but also of documented literature, a permanent record of impropriety that would echo through the ages. Even as Europe laughed and mocked, Julius and Innocenzo continued their lives. The Pope's obsession was complete. He had made the young man not just a companion, but a cardinal, a position no amount of incompetence could diminish in his eyes. The audacity of the act, the scandal it inspired, and the cultural fallout together illustrate how personal passion can intersect with power to produce enduring infamy. The papacy of Julius III offers a window into the human side of power. Even the most revered offices are not immune to personal desire, favoritism, or obsession. Julius's love for Innocenzo reshaped the Vatican, influenced decisions, and made a laughingstock of one of the most sacred institutions in Europe. It demonstrates the tension between private desire and public responsibility, showing how personal attachment can override institutional duty. The story also raises broader questions about history and morality. Should we judge Julius solely by modern standards of propriety? Or should we consider the context of Renaissance Europe, where power, love, and scandal often intertwined? Does this tale reveal weakness, passion, or a reckless defiance of convention? Perhaps all three. At the midpoint of this story, it is worth pausing to reflect and to remind viewers. If you are fascinated by the hidden scandals of the Vatican, like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications. The history of the papacy is filled with astonishing tales that challenge everything you think you know about power, morality, and human nature. The story of Julius III and Innocenzo is more than a historical curiosity. It is a tale of love, obsession, and audacity that transcends centuries. It reminds us that even in the most powerful offices, human desire can alter history, influence decisions, and provoke scandal. Julius III's papacy may be remembered for its failures and ridicule, but it is also immortalized for his daring, his willingness to defy convention, and the enduring impact of his personal choices. What do you think? Was Julius III a reckless leader blinded by love, or a man whose personal loyalty redefined power in the Vatican? The story leaves us with no easy answers, only the enduring fascination of a pope, his young lover, and a scandal that shook Europe. Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden stories from the history of the Vatican and the secrets behind